So the state of emergency was, you declared that this morning. Is that,
yes.
That's for the damage that occurred yesterday, correct?
Yes, Jimmy, this is the third week in a row where we've had devastating weather in the Commonwealth, starting with the Pulaski incidents a couple of weeks ago, and then very widespread tornado damage last Saturday. And I'm still getting the update this morning. I was on the phone late last night with the sheriff of Halifax and others. Overnight there was very damaging tornadoes in Shenandoah County and Washington County. In fact, Washington County now has confirmed 7 fatalities, and they're still in the search and rescue mode at this time. And so, again, Virginia has been devastated. The same system that caused those 72 deaths in the Deep South, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi the last few days. So I declared a state of emergency because it is not just Southwest, but it's South Side and even the western part of the state. I'm going to get out there as soon as I can. Weather may prevent me from flying out there today, but by tomorrow I'll go out there to survey myself. But it's obviously heartbreaking. A lot of property damage down in Danville. They told me last night, in Halifax, that it was worse than the previous week. And so, the law enforcement and VDOT and Dominion and all the teams are doing extraordinarily well in reacting and helping people.
When it comes to declaring a state of emergency, I know it allows you to move around certain things
yes.
in the state to help out these areas. Yes. But overall, aside from that, what else does it mean as far as what the Commonwealth can potentially do or is eligible for as far as disaster relief?
It allows us to utilize National Guard resources, and so if we need to call them up either for law enforcement or to use equipment or relief personnel, we can do that. So we're assessing those manpower needs right now. It allows certain funds that I've got available, discretionary funds for disaster relief, to be triggered. We'll make some announcements soon on Pulaski from what we got in from damage estimates a couple of weeks ago for reimbursement for destruction of public buildings or for the use of public resources over time for law enforcement, etc. Those are the funds that can be used. And then a separate issue is, of course, the federal net disaster relief, which require presidential action, and that would allow FEMA resources to come in to make either direct reimbursements to citizens who have lost property and maybe didn't have insurance. But those criteria are a lot more stringent and are generally reserved for very wide-scale destruction. In other words, there has to be a minimum number of homes that are destroyed, etc. That's the federal rule. So each one of these counties is sort of a case-by-case basis, but I have been visiting Gloucester, Middlesex, and Pulaski in the last couple of weeks, have assured them that we're going to be there, be good neighbors, stand by their side, and do everything we can to try to get people back on their feet.
I guess if there is any silver lining or good news to what has happened with the storms is we found out, not this batch of storms, but the last batch that in Surrey, where we have a nuclear power plant,
yes.
that things went exactly the way they're supposed to when you have that kind of a storm, that
yes.
kind of a situation. So for those who have been worried ever since what happened in Japan as far as their natural disaster and the nuclear power plant that they have there, I think maybe they got some reassurance that our nuclear power plants are safe.
Yeah, Jimmy, that's a fair analysis. In fact, in talking extensively now with our Director of Emergency Management and a number of law enforcement and local government officials on the ground in these jurisdictions, our folks were exceptionally well prepared and well trained. When I say our, state and local, and the private sector with Dominion and others. Very well prepared on the scene immediately with significant resources. Virginians are incredibly hardy and generous people. The resources we saw coming into churches and the people volunteering were extraordinary. Surrey, you're exactly right. I was on the phone within an hour and a half with the chairman of Dominion to talk to him about the situation there. He told us that the backup generator, off-site generators went on exactly as planned. Fuel supplies were properly taken care of, and power was restored in a very short period of time. And so all the things that they put in place and that they file with FERC when they get their permits and so forth all went according to plan. We sent people out there the next day to be on site to evaluate it, and we're satisfied as well that our nuclear power industry is on top of things here.
More severe weather coming for the Commonwealth today. We'll
yes.
keep our fingers crossed that it's not as bad as some of the predictions would seem to indicate that it could be.
Yes.
I want to ask you about redistricting, because it would appear that the Virginia Senate has reached, between Democrats and Republicans, some sort of a compromise. What have you heard about that compromise and whether it's something you could support?
Well, Jimmy, I said when I vetoed the bill that I did it for a couple reasons. One, I thought there were legal problems on compactness, on split communities, and on the population deviations to protect the one man, one vote principle, and I needed to see progress on those fronts. Now, I've just gotten a detailed briefing earlier this morning and a preliminary briefing. I'm obviously waiting for the Attorney General's office to look at it and so forth, but I think there's been a progress on the legal issues. And secondly I expected to see some bipartisan cooperation between between the Senate Republicans and Senate Democrats on coming up with a plan that everybody that was equitable, and that's what they did in the House. It was about an 80-9 vote yesterday. So obviously bipartisan support for their plan. I don't have full feedback from both caucuses yet on that, but given where we were 12 days ago, which was we're not changing a period or a comma, we've come a long way, and it is in the best interest of the citizens, as well as the legislative process, to create finality soon, because we've got a lengthy pre-clearance process. We've got a primary date set for August 23rd. We've got to mail out absentee ballots to our military by July 9th, and so it's critical that we reach finality soon. So I'm hoping to make an evaluation of that today.
Do you think it was just the realization that this could very well and likely would end up in the federal court system, and this could drag on for a significant period of time, that got this thing moving in the right direction?
Well, I think clearly that. I spent a lot of time talking to senators on both sides of the aisle to discuss the importance of getting this done in the good Virginia traditions, not abdicating responsibility and going to court. That creates uncertainty. I think it would be embarrassing to say we couldn't work this out. We just finished a unanimous budget among Democrats and Republicans for the first time in recent memory, so surely they could find a path to an equitable resolution on redistricting. So it seems, though, in principle that they're very close. I think the caucuses are meeting today, early this morning, but I'm hopeful we'll have decisions and votes today, as early as today, on these bills.
Obviously, we have a lot of things to talk about this morning on the program, not the least of which is the latest thing with Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli. He's going to support Virginia Tech as they try to fight the fine that was levied against them for how the massacre was handled. Do you have any thoughts on how that is going to proceed at this point?
Obviously, that's a legal issue, and so when there's active litigation or appeals, I try not to weigh in on that, other than to say that, of course, I was Attorney General at the time of the shootings, right, and we were able to successfully resolve all but 2 of those lawsuits in that case. And what the federal government says, there was a violation of a federal statute. I haven't looked in detail at that statute to see whether or not the sanction and the violation was appropriate, so I'm going to let the legal team make those determinations. Obviously, the Attorney General thinks there's a basis for an appeal.
Okay. Our phone number, 1-800-955-7333. Feel free to call in. We'll go to the phones and get your questions for Governor Bob McDonnell in our next segment. It is the once-monthly visit of Bob McDonnell and Ask the Governor on Virginia News Network.